following video footage was captured live at a rare Dr. Schulze public appearance. Dr. Schulze was told that without open heart surgery, he would be dead by age 20. Instead, he healed himself of his life-threatening heart deformity and of other incurable injuries. He then made it his life's work to help others have healing miracles too. Over 50,000 people worldwide have followed Dr. Schulze's natural healing programs. Many have healed themselves of so-called killer and incurable diseases. Because his patients dared to heal themselves of cancer, AIDS, diabetes, arthritis, heart disease, Alzheimer's, and other diseases that medicine declares incurable, his clinic was forced to close, and he now lives in hiding. Dr. Schulze is a very dangerous man to doctors and drug companies, but to you, he just might save your life.
There's a lady, a lot of people came up to me during the break. It was wonderful to hear so many great stories and healing testimonies. A man with arthritis that did the hot and cold, and just all the wonderful stories. And a young lady came up to me and mentioned that she had cancer. The doctors wanted her to do chemotherapy. She declined. And they spent 4 hours trying to talk her into doing it. And when she declined further, they even tried to take her kids away. Bonita Young, where are you? Is it Bonita? Is it Bonita? Would you stand up for a second? Yeah, here she is. Yeah. I have a young son that you'll all get to meet, and so I can just imagine how you felt. And so good for you. Good for you. We love you and we support you. You can come over to my house and defend yourself if you have to. You'll be seeing it on TV. It'll be the next Waco, the next Ruby Ridge. Dr. Schulze in his house, 1,000 rounds of ammunition. Getting a new big poster up at the American Botanical Pharmacy. It's a ATF officer in full bulletproof uniform, a gas mask on, a machine gun, and it says, "We're from the government, we're here to help you." Things might get a little worse before they get better. I try to keep my composure, although it is known that I do call the AMA the American Murderers Association. And I have been quoted at that in a number of magazines. But they're not all bad. Of course, we have medical doctors that come here, and God bless all the medical doctors that come here. And we're going to have a wonderful friend of mine, medical doctor, speak tomorrow. Cindy, we'll talk about that a little later. So medical doctors aren't all bad. Just it's about 99% of them that are greedy, unthinking, godless butchers. There's still a few that are okay. Why do I say that? Well, greedy's pretty obvious. In the hospital, when you go into a hospital, the way that you're taken care of as a patient is not necessarily what's best for you to get well. In fact, nowadays it's almost dictated by the legal department of the hospital of the treatment that's going to keep them less visible for a lawsuit. That's why I say greedy, because your health is not the #1 priority anymore. And I only have one focus, and I had it for 20 years in my clinic, and that's why I'm up here right now, and that's to help people get well, period. And that's my focus. And you're going to hear that over and over again. So doctors are greedy, because when you start mixing money into that healing, now I love money, and I spend money, and I need money, because I need money to buy all these books that I throw around. But when you lose that priority of helping people get well, that's why I say the word greedy. Ignorant, because doctors are ignorant of some of the most basic laws of nature. They stopped looking out the window and continued to look further into the microscope. And they became stupid and ignorant to the point where they won't tell someone who's constipated to eat some fruit. Instead, they cut their bowel out. This is ignorant. Godless? How could you possibly believe in God and then go in the human body and cut out parts and saying that they weren't needed, that they're a mistake, or that we know better, or we know how this works, now we can remove it? We're never going to know how it works. And butchers, hey, my patients looked like the Frankenstein monster. My patients were burnt, mutilated, poisoned, carved up. Some of the stories I'm going to tell you this week, you won't believe any human could do that to another human. I do not have a very good opinion of medical doctors and medicine in this country. I mentioned the medical statistics. There's a name for it. Iatrogenic disease and death. Iatrogenic disease or death. Iatros is the Greek word for physician, and of course Genesis, created, the beginning. The name iatrogenic disease and death comes from the idea that doctors are causing your death. Now, many medical journals have published what they thought the rate or percentage was of people dying at the hands of physicians. Either they killed you during surgery, or you died shortly after, or they gave you drugs and you had some type of reaction that hurt another part of your body and killed you. But all the people that succumb at the hands of physicians. In other words, they'd still be alive today if they hadn't run into their doctor and let their doctor get their hands on them. The statistics showed a number, a percentage. It didn't sound like very much. And I called the Center for Disease Control and tried to tabulate what this percentage was. The number I came up with was 1 million people a year in the United States die at the hands of doctors. Now, I already told you that that is more than any American's death in every war we've had in this country since the Revolutionary War all the way to Desert Storm. And we kill that many a year through medicine. We've looked at how aspects of alternative medicine are not really natural healing. Let's take a look at medicine for a minute and establish the differences between medicine and natural healing also, so you really start to get a picture of what medicine is. And to do that, you can take a look at page 9 if you're a handout type person. One of my oldest charts, one of my favorite charts. Every patient in my clinic got this chart, the difference between natural healing and medical intervention. First, take a look at symptoms. Many of us get symptoms. We have a headache. That's a symptom. Pain in the head. In natural healing, we look at these symptoms as wonderful, wonderful. Your body is talking to you. Your body is communicating to you. This is wonderful. We stop, look, and listen when our body has a symptom. In medicine, we try to get rid of it. Oh, you have a headache? Let's take some aspirin. Americans swallow 300 million tablets of aspirin a day. Does this sound like a group of people that want to listen to their body talk? That want to hear the communication? This is a group of people that are taking the computer monitor and throwing it out the window. Now, how could you sit there with just your hard drive and your keyboard and know what's going on? You've lost your communication. Symptoms are our communication. We need to learn to love them and say, thank you, Lord, for this symptom, because it's going to tell us what to do. What is a headache? What does it mean? This is bitter, horrible stuff. It must be here. Someone give me a cup of coffee or something here, Coke? Detox tea. And if it's that bad on the first day, we're in a lot of trouble here. Thank you, Keith, Ron. Medicine dulls and suppresses and removes symptoms. You got a headache, maybe you got a brain tumor. Maybe you just need to sit down and breathe and shut your mouth for 5 minutes. Maybe you need to turn off the TV and get back into bed. Today's just not the day. Maybe you have subluxated cervical vertebrae. And you need them realigned. Maybe you have a tight upper trapezius muscle. Maybe you've just been reading too much. Maybe you're thinking bad thoughts. Maybe you're constipated. Maybe you have bad digestion. Maybe your spine's out down here. I can think of 1,000 reasons you have a headache, but the answer is not to dope yourself to where you don't feel the pain. The answer is to figure out why you have a headache and correct the problem. But you see medicine with its aspirin. You see medicine with all its drugs. We have a drugstore on every corner, and then we say to our kids, just say no to drugs. Where are you going, Mom? To the drugstore. I don't get it, and neither do they, and that's why we have a drug problem. How can we expect our children to not be drug addicts when we are drug addicts? We want to make medicine and pharmacy go away. Just stop giving them money. It'll disappear overnight. We have to stop supporting that. Suppressing symptoms. Oh, I got a cough. Well, let's take some codeine and so we stop coughing. You know, when you have an infection in your lungs and those macrophages in there eat up the mucus, they die and you need to cough that out. We need an expectorant. I went to a health show with Dr. Christopher, and he made some wonderful cough syrup. And we took that cough syrup to sell, and everybody brought it back and said, it's horrible stuff, it made me cough more. I said, Dr. Christopher, that's making him cough more. And he goes, great, that's what it's supposed to do. That's the difference between natural healing and suppressing. Suppressing never, ever works. It doesn't work, it doesn't get you well, it always makes you worse. Suppressing people doesn't work. I watched them run over humans with a tank in China. Do you think there's going to be some problems there in the future? You bet. You cannot suppress this. And you can't suppress it in your body. It doesn't work. Imagine there's fire alarms in here. They go off. Or you're home at night, you're sleeping, the fire alarm goes off. Well, you can get up and go over to the fire alarm and rip out the batteries and throw them in the trash and go back to bed, and you will burn alive. Or you can look for the fire. That's the difference between medicine and natural healing. Oh, you have a fever. Well, this is serious now. According to the herbal book, we should take aspirin. It's more effective. We have a fever. Ooh, that's bad. That's scary. We better take something to bring the fever down. But there's a lot of reasons that you have a fever. And now we know most of those reasons why you have a fever. In fact, you'll learn in medical school, it's called leukotaxis, a process of your body called leukotaxis. And what it means is that for every degree of temperature rise in your body, so every time your temperature goes up from 98 to 99 to 100 to 101 and up, the speed at which the white blood cells can travel in your body is doubled. For every degree of temperature rise in your body, the speed at which your white blood cells can travel through your body is doubled to get to the bacteria, to the virus, to the fungus, to the germs, and eat them up and save you and heal you. That means at 104-degree temperature, the speed of your white blood cells is 64 times faster than normal to get to the bad guys and eat it up. Do you want to slow that down? I don't understand that. We gave aspirin to kids with the flu and killed thousands of kids all around this country. We call it Ray's syndrome. toxicity, overload. We don't know why that happened. They overloaded with toxins. Why? Because we shut their fever down. We slowed down their immune system. So doctors figured it out. Don't give them aspirin, give them Tylenol. Give them acetaminophen. Give them another drug to slow the fever down. I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense to me. Doctors are beginning to not understand it either. Doctors have said to me, don't use the word detoxify. We don't like that word detoxify. It's the herbal stuff. What detoxify what? It doesn't make sense. Detoxify, like, it doesn't make sense. I open up the first medical book and it says that the immune cells are the detoxifying properties of your body. I hear this all the time. And then you look further and you go into one class in medicine, and here's what they teach you right out of general immunology, a standard medical text in the United States. They're talking about the tonsils, because when we get ill, sometimes our tonsils swell up. What they're swelling up with is white blood cells to protect you, because this is a way your body's invaded right here. It says, in the location in your throat, tonsils provide an ever-present source of lymphocytes, meaning white blood cells, capable of reacting against a multiple of microbes that bombard the oral cavity. Oh, good. My tonsils are good. They're protecting me from an invasion, protecting my oral cavity. Tonsillar lymphocytes in the tonsils can synthesize immunoglobulin even against the polio virus. Wow, right here in the neck. Without question, the tonsil lymphocytes and adenoids are immunologically competent. These characteristics underscore the importance of the tonsils in the maintenance of immunity and provide strong evidence that argues against performing tonsillectomy. Ding, 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 class is over, go next door to surgery, and they teach you how to cut the tonsils out. I don't get it. This is what's going on in medical schools all over the world. The house of cards of medicine is starting to shake and tremble. The theories that were built on are false, are godless, and it's falling apart. In fact, the tonsils in young children, removal of the tonsils in young children will impair the anti-polio immune mechanism. It's also shown that there's a much higher degree of Hodgkin's disease in people who have their tonsils removed. And then you go next door and learn how to cut them out. 1 million children a year in the United States last year had their tonsils cut out of their throat, even with this published and every doctor knowing it. It doesn't make sense, does it? In fact, it gets worse. When I was a kid, we had the polio vaccine. I got it, my brother got it. In fact, one was cherry flavored, so I went back in line 3 times. And got it. They know how to get you as a kid. See, when you're an adult, they have to try to argue into toxic drugs. When you're a kid, they just put sugar and cherry juice in it. Man, I want those drugs. Give me those drugs. And then I'm supposed to grow up and say no to drugs? I want drugs. Drugs are good. That's what I learned in school. It's funny, isn't it? It really is. So I got my polio vaccine so I wouldn't get polio. And the doctor that invented the polio vaccine was heralded as the greatest healer of our time. They took polio and injected into pigs until they died of polio. Then they took their kidneys out and took the pus out of their kidneys, and that's how they made that cherry-flavored, sugar-coated crap that I took in line. Now, that doctor was heralded as a great, but when they took that pus out, it was dirty, so they looked at it under microscopes and they cleaned that pus to where there was just in it what they needed. Unfortunately, they looked back at that vaccine 15 years later and found it contained 149 live viruses that we couldn't see in the 1950s. Whoops. There's that whoops theory of medicine. Just one of those 149 viruses, Harvard has labeled the SV40 virus, and they find it inside every cancer cell, and the rate of cancer has gone up 10 times since then. There's a lot of doctors that feel we wouldn't ever had polio unless we wouldn't have ripped the tonsils out of kids in the 1920s and 30s. Remember the massive tonsillectomies? My friend Bodie back there, they did his whole family, did a package deal. That went on, got the package deal, all the kids for one price. And we started ripping tonsils out. See, we've gone against God and nature right there. And then the next thing we know is polio. No problem, pig pus into our bodies. What happens? More cancer. That's what happens when you go down the medical road. That's why people all around the world today have had it with medicine. They've been maimed by medicine. They've seen their friends and relatives tortured with medicine, and they can't even afford it anyway. And that's why we're going against it. Medicine is even going against itself. It cannot last. We're just early crusaders talking about it. Because if we save one more person, we've done our job here in these 4 days. But let me tell you, we're going to help thousands and millions. Just the energy I'm putting out alone in the next 2-3 years, you're going to see a lot more and hear a lot more about me. But imagine with all of you. I have 1,000 practicing students in Europe and Africa and the Middle East. This is why I'm against all war. I have students in Baghdad. I have students in Israel. We can't have a war. I lose crusaders and students. Suppression of symptoms. Just because our body swells up, we can't cut it off. Because we have pain, we can't drug it out of us. So the biggest difference between natural healing and medicine is when our body is talking to us, we listen. And we know that it's telling us something and that we need to react to. We need to do something about it. And this something is not doping ourselves up. The focus of natural healing is to create health. The focus of medicine is to kill and destroy disease and cure you. If you want to stay out of jail, I'm a specialist at that now. Say you're creating health. That's what we're doing. We're helping people to create better health. The method of treatment we use is we assist people to do that. We set up an environment, a lifestyle, and lo and behold, the miracle happens. You get well. You don't have to know anatomy. You don't have to know physiology. Suppose we wanted to grow a sunflower. Do you have to know what photosynthesis is? Do you have to know what chlorophyll is? Do you have to know how the sun affects the leaf structure of the plant? Do you have to know the complex relationship and exchange between carbon dioxide and oxygen? No. You can kick a hole in the ground, you can even pee on it, and you're going to get a sunflower. Does that make sense? You can grow it without that knowledge. So what I'm telling you today is here, you are all doctors. I certify you right now. That's your God-given right. So let's get a healing ourselves and get out there healing people. That's what we're supposed to be doing. You don't need to hang that stethoscope around your neck. You can hear better with your ear on someone's chest. I figured that one out. This is your God-given right to help yourselves and to heal people. What the doctors use, they attack, they kill, they remove. It's not assistance. I call it intervention. Doctors go into your body with harsh and toxic chemicals, with knives, because they got it figured out. They know how the liver works. Bull. We will never, ever, ever know how the liver works. We will never know how anything works. It's so complex. In fact, this is why medicine is always wrong, because they're always wrong, because they're always figuring out something new, and they always go, oh yeah, well we thought the liver did 16 functions, but now we know it does 27. Oh, we thought the liver did 27 functions, now we know it does 146. We'll never know enough. If we were supposed to know all the functions of the liver, we would have electron microscopes growing on trees, but they're not, so we don't. All we have to do is know how to love our liver, how to nourish it with food to make it happy, and not do the things that kill it. That's our job. That's why I say set up the environment, set up the lifestyle to promote health and healing in your life. We don't have to know all this complicated stuff. In fact, most doctors I meet don't know it anyway. They forgot it. I read more medical books than they do to give me all the ammunition. Therapeutic products. The big difference is whole and natural healing and only part in medicine. In natural healing, we use wholesome, whole foods, whole grains. We believe in the divine power, in nature, that things were made for us the way they're supposed to be, and all we got to do is put them in our mouth. I am a believer. In fact, if any of you came in here thinking you're a believer, I hope you leave here even more of a believer, because you're going to make me more of a believer. We need lots of help with our belief and our trust in God and nature, because the minute you walk out this door, someone or somebody's going to try to take it away from you. Again, to disempower you, and I'm here to empower you. And I'm a believer. But medicine does not believe, and this is why I call it godless again, because they think that everything out there is crude. Remember, we learned it very well in our book right here. Medicine, the way we tell a false weed doctor scam artist like me is that we think herbs were created by God to cure disease, and this is not testable according to science. And so we're not testable. Pretty testy, but not testable. Therapeutic modalities, we use them all. Wonderful vegetarian food programs, bowel cleansing, skin brushing, hot and cold showers, massage, love, hugs, exercise, everything we can that's natural and feels good to help our body and assist our body to be well and come back into balance. Medicine, of course, we know what they use: surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, horrible ways to cut you apart and burn you, forgetting about you. You ever notice it with doctors? They forget about you. Now, I've seen a lot of weird things in my life, but I never saw a spleen walk in my office and sit down and say, "Hi, Dr. Schulze, how are you?" That's a big difference between natural healing and medicine, is there's a whole person there. I had a woman come to me with a rectal tumor, and the doctor said, "No problem, we can burn it off with radiation." I said, I wouldn't even let him cut some skin here, let alone let him put a radiation beam here. I mean, come on, is this some bad James Bond movie? I'd tell any secret. But she didn't listen, and they said, "No, come on, don't listen to that Dr. Schulze. He's not even a good herbalist, because he doesn't use aspirin." Don't listen to that, Dr. Schulze. We got some laser-guided smart bomb radiation. We're going to put it just on the right part of your butt. 3 days later, she came home and she sat down on the toilet to have a bowel movement, and the fecal matter came out her vagina, and she died about a month after that. That's medicine, and that's that laser-guided smart bomb radiation. Those are the type of stories you hear with medicine. I've done a lot of bowel cleansing, and I've had my patients purge out every orifice, but I never had any of them do that, right? That's the difference between natural healing and medicine. Emotions, love. Whew, that's the big healer. Love, laughter, that's the emotions. Empowerment, belief, trust. I can do it. Those are the emotions of natural healing. And medicine, what I always hear is that, it's horrible. I'm going to try to cope with it. What does that mean? When I heard patients say that in my office, dead. I knew they were dying. I could tell the patients in my office that were going to live or die in about 4 seconds, just because of their attitude. Are they winners? Are they losers? And finally, the responsibility. There's only one person driving your car in natural healing, and that's you. You got your foot on the brake, you got your foot on the gas, you got your hands on the steering wheel, but I am not responsible for anybody but Dr. Schulze. Every patient that came in my clinic had to attest to their responsibility for their disease and for their healing. I don't get anybody well. I have tools, I have education, I have a loud voice, and I got a size 11 foot. But that's about it. These patients of mine got themselves well. That's the responsibility factor. If you do not want to take responsibility for yourself, that's what medicine is for. That's what medicine is for people who don't want to be responsible. Oh, I'm so sick, I caught this disease, doctor, please save me. That's for medicine, and I'm fine with that. I give people 100% permission to do anything they want. So if you want to get the radiation beam, whatever it is you want to play, go play it. And I bless you and I love you. But that's not what we're talking about here. Natural healing is all about responsibility. This is one of the great ways we're going to heal this planet, and we're going to heal our children and ourselves, is by taking responsibility for what we do to ourselves and to others. And only then are we going to have this beautiful, loving, peaceful place to live. Those are some of the differences between natural healing and medical intervention. On the next page, page 10, you will see the back side of this chart, but I made them all on single-sided paper so you'd have room to write. Please write in your books if you want and highlight them. I always like it when people do that and then give it to me so I know where the good parts are. These are factors that determine your level of health. What you are, what you feel, how you exist right now is a sum total of these factors. The first one, and I say here, your current level of health is a perfect reflection of how your body, mind, and spirit responded to your environment and lifestyle. Does that make sense? What you're feeling right now is the responding of your body to the environment or lifestyle that you set yourself up in. Where you live, your house, your furniture, the colors, the food, everything. The first category is intake. What you take into your body. And we're going to break these down in a minute and go into them deeper. What you take into your body, intake. Food, water, the quality of it. Solids and liquids. Is it an apple and some carrot juice and this incredible salad you're going to see in a little bit in the next room? Or is it the beer and pepperoni pizza? That is what, I'm trying not to say brand names. That is what is going to decide how you reflect to your lifestyle tomorrow, what you feel like tomorrow. How about the elimination? How well does this stuff you put in come out? Well, some of this stuff is like glue. It doesn't come out. Other things come out well. So how well your body processes what you put in and how well it gets rid of it. That determines your level of health. How about the way you move your body and the way you circulate your fluids and your blood and your lymph and your chi, ki, prana, how everything moves. It's important to move your body. That determines your level of health. Your emotions and your spirit. You can't be waking up every day not liking yourself. We're going to talk a lot about this afternoon. You have to love yourself. You have to be excited about yourself. That determines your level of health. And all these things put together create you. If you are not happy with what you have, just start changing things that I just mentioned. And the next thing you know is you'll be different. Look what it says on the bottom. Your entire body will totally rebuild itself in less than 2 years. People used to think it was 7 years. Now most people agree it's 2 years. I saw my patients do it in 2 weeks. 98% of your body will rebuild itself in less than a year. That's less than 525,600 minutes. And your body's going to totally rebuild itself. But it gets better. A new brain in a year, new blood in 4 months. Every 120 days, every red blood cell in your body, every erythrocyte, every red blood cell dies. And you get another one. So 120 days from today, 4 months from today, all the blood in your body is gone and you have all new blood. What is going to determine what this new blood is like? Well, is it the junk food and the pizza and the burgers and the beer and the whiskey and the cigarette blood? Or is it going to be apple and carrot juice blood and organic green blood? Do you know what I'm saying? That's what's going to determine this new blood. I had people come into me with some of the worst blood diseases known, and in 4 months their blood disease was gone. Why? Because they decided not to be the average American. A new skeleton in 3 months, yahoo. A new hand in 1 month, I can tell you right here, it says skin in 1 month, I saw it. I made it happen. New liver in 6 weeks. You can rebuild your whole liver in 6 weeks, cell for cell. New DNA in 2 months. And a new stomach lining in 5 days, and I think that's too long. Most of my people got new stomach linings in about 3 days. So these are old numbers. It's much better. And this is just the Dr. Schulze program. You can do better. You can take it a few steps from here. Let's look at one of the first pages. Page 4. These are some quotes. There's 3 words here we're going to talk about, and quotes that I used in my clinic that helped people, and I want to share them with you. The first is the 3 words. These are the 3 words that I think describe best natural healing, because now we're into what natural healing is. And the first one is simplicity. It's got to be simple. Too complicated, you don't need it. Electron microscope, throw it out. Has to plug in the wall, you don't need it. Oh, they're fun to play with, but you don't need it. 1,400 different points to push, you don't need it. Textbooks this thick, you don't need them. It's like that sunflower. Plant it, water it, it grows. Natural healing, you don't have to have a degree in advanced calculus. Natural healing's for everybody. Anybody can do it. In fact, in history, the greatest natural healers were usually totally uneducated people that became the greatest because they didn't have so many things boggling up their mind. I asked Dr. Christopher once, why do you think it is gorillas live longer than us? They're healthier. They live on the average about 150 years. They don't lose their hair. He says, I think it's because they have a smaller brain. Think about that one. I think he's right. We get ourselves in trouble with all this information and all this knowledge. If it sounds too complicated, forget it. If something I say sounds too complicated, forget it. You're here to seek your own truths and feel with your heart. You know, reason I got into natural healing is because everything I was told by doctors didn't feel good right here. It didn't make sense. It didn't feel good. And that's why you're here. I'm going to say a lot of things that are going to touch you. This is where you want to assimilate all this. Not in your brain, but in your heart. If it feels right, take this message and take it out to the world. If it doesn't, I'm sorry, and find another message. But this is where you digest everything. You know, we're taught as kids to lose our common sense. They called me a daydreamer, threw me out of school numerous times, staring out the window. Don't listen to that inner voice. They beat me to where I almost couldn't hear that inner voice, and I spent years trying to get it back. That's everything. That's the voice of God. That's your inner voice. If you feel it and it feels right and you hear it, it is right. And that's what we have to start trusting and living again as part of getting well, and especially healing this planet. So simple. Programs need to be simple, easy, make common sense. If you got to get some herb potion that comes from somewhere halfway around the world that some guy from with one leg picks off a llama's back, forget it. I can teach you how to be well even out of a grocery store, a regular one. It should be simple. Change. Change is very important. See, you're going to change. You're changing right now. Everything's in a state of change. And you must realize that. Even rocks are changing. You just can't see them changing. They're changing slower. Leaves are dying and falling, and it turns into dust and minerals and goes into the soil and builds the soil. Everything's in a constant state of change, and you're changing. The key is what are you going to change to tomorrow and next week and next month and next year? That's what we're talking about here. Now, a lot of people don't like to change, and we change a lot of ways that are wonderful. You know, when I was 16, 17, I used to walk around, and I had a lot of blood in my body, but it wasn't up here. I think it was more down here. I was led around by a different area. And then as you get older, you get more blood here in your heart. And then as you get older up here, we have to love this change. You know, this is one of the problems. We resist change. We resist change so much. You know, it's a horror to me that everywhere I go in the world, people love, listen to, and respect the oldest, the elders. These are the people to listen to. They've experienced life. These are the people that are going to help us with our health problems, our emotional problems. What do we do in this country with our elders? We put them in nursing homes and give them Valium. The drugs that people get in nursing homes, most of them have no therapeutic benefit at all, no benefit. These drugs are just shut up and go away. That's how we treat our elders in this country. One of our greatest crimes. Because we don't want to see them. That scares us. They're old, and we don't want to get old. You know, my clinic for 10 years was in Hollywood and 10 years in Malibu, so I worked on mostly the entertainment industry. And so I wanted to share just a couple things with you here this morning, because some of you don't know some of the insides of the entertainment industry, just so you can see that resistance to change. You know, I worked on a lot of young ladies, models. And when I first started my clinic in the 1980s, when I first started my clinic in Malibu, the average age of a cover model or a print model was 20 to 21. 10 years later, the average age of a print model was 15 and a half. Look what we're doing. So you're looking at the cover of your magazine, you ladies, and you're thinking, why don't I look like that? And then your husband's going, yeah, why don't you look like that? It's because you're out of puberty. And most of these 15, 16-year-old ladies that came in my office already had, on the average, 2 cosmetic surgeries. Usually silicone into the lips, maybe some fat removed from the eyes, maybe a breast augmentation or a breast reduction. You ever notice that in this business, nobody's breasts were perfect? They all had to be either blown up or reduced. They had plastic everywhere. My patients had so much plastic in them, I used to say when they die, we should just recycle them, forget burying. I mean, it's frightening, frightening. And the amount of ups and downs and thighs and all the stuff that goes on, it was just a horror. And then we look at this and we think that's how we're supposed to look when we're 30 and 40 and 50, and we're not. It's all a lie. The movies, the television, it supports this myth. And I'm not saying don't go to the movies or watch television. I'm just saying that we need to look at it for what it really is. Some type of entertainment, but not reality. This is not reality. And I saw it with I used to have women that were so ill. Some of these shows where they have to wear bathing suits all the time. They used to have under those bathing suits Velcro waist cinchers and girdles. And they have to be like that all day. And when they came to see me, this one woman, I was feeling her abdomen because she was in pain, and right behind her navel, I could feel the anterior portion of her lumbar vertebrae. That's not a good sign. I mean, look at the size of some of these people. It's crazy. This is not what real people look like. This is some kind of weird fantasy. The men, it doesn't get much better. I had men in my clinic. They had liposuction on their abdomens. Hey, some of these people on Star Trek in the movie have more hair now than they did 25 years ago when it started. It's called glue. And I had a lot of men that had liposuction also, and a lot of steroid use to build more muscle mass and burn away the fat. And a lot of ill health because of that. I treated people in my clinic for all types of diseases caused by trying to create this myth. So the point, and it gets worse. It gets into our sports. Sports in this country is horrible. You cannot compete, let alone win, at professional sports in this country anymore unless you take drugs. That's the reality. Watch the Super Bowl, you're looking at a bunch of drug addicts. Okay? Watch our athletes, you're watching drug addicts. You should see the drugs that are used in this industry. What do you think? You watch the Olympics, and every year they break the new world record. What'd they do? More sit-ups? No, it's called drug therapy. It's called drug warfare. And I love these Olympic athletes that get up and say, I've never used drugs. Ha! What a laugh. I know what they do. I've seen it. I've worked on some of these people. They're drug addicts. 10, 15 years ago, they'd take 1 or 2 shots of testosterone. Now they'll take 50 and shoot it directly in every muscle group. And some of you say, well, don't they drug test? Yeah, I had one person that wanted to pass a drug test and couldn't. So you know what he did? He took somebody else's urine. And you're thinking and poured it in the test. No, and injected it into his bladder so he could pee somebody else's urine. There was a bicycle race in Europe when I was last over there, and the top 15 winners all tested drug positive for a bicycle race. And instead of making them not win, they changed the drug rules. You can't find drug-free athletes anymore. And the harm of this is what my children are going to look at as a role model? All these drugged-up people? And look what happens when they get older. Killings and rapings, and it's horrible. And this is due to the massive amount of steroid and drug use in sports. And so we're going to have to start turning that channel and looking for some normalcy here. I know that hits hard with some people, but it's a sad truth in America now. Who are the sponsors for these things? Beer commercials? Yeah. Thank you for saying the brand name. This is one of the ways we're going to heal ourselves. We got to stop this craziness. Life is like leaping in a stream and screaming hallelujah and loving it from beginning to end and just flowing. It's not a matter of scrambling, and trying to grab on and stop things. This change is a blessing, and we're missing the blessing if we don't flow with it. Boy, I love every day when I wake up who I am today. I'm different than yesterday, and tomorrow I'll be different than today. And it's wonderful. This is life. It's our blessing. It's great. We have to stop holding on and trying to freeze moments. There's things I was better at 20 years ago, but there's things I'm better at now than I was 20 years ago. Does that make sense? We have to start appreciating life and what happens to us. It's wonderful. So we have simplicity, we have change, and the third word that you've already heard that goes with natural healing is responsibility. Responsibility. Like I said, you're driving your own car. I have never watched a farmer plant corn and have pumpkins and strawberries come up. Have you ever heard of you reap what you sow? Yes. That's called responsibility. What you get is what you put into it. You don't like what you got, put something different in. Put something different in here, put something different in here. Start changing what you're putting in, and you'll get something different. It's that simple. Your body inside it knows how to be well. It's just waiting for you to let it do that. And for many people, just to get out of the way. Your body has a blueprint of perfect health in every cell of your body. In your RNA, your DNA, in every cell, your body knows exactly how to be well. And it's trying to do that. It's trying. In fact, in immunology, one of the first things you learn is your body's survival mechanism is just to repair itself, just to survive and repair. That's what all of our bodies here are trying to do every hour. Survive and repair. Every minute, every second. Survive and repair. That's what your body's trying to do. It's just that we keep getting in the way of that happening. And if you have a disease, you got too much in the way. Now, some people say, but I take much better care of myself than all the people at work. Why do I have cancer and they're okay? You had different parents. Genetics come into play. Really, your health is the total of your lifestyle and what you do affecting with your genetics. Now, some of us are George Burnses. We can smoke 8 cigars today and drink liquor like it's going out of style and live to be over 100 or whatever. Some of us aren't. On a scale of 1 to 10, my constitution's about a 2. That's what I've been rated by most iridologists. And most of you think I'm probably a 10. I am a 10, but my constitution's a 2, so I had to make up that 8. Some of us have to make more up. We have more work to do. Some of us got an easy cruise. You know, Johnny Weissmuller won more gold medals in swimming in the Olympics than anybody, and he smoked 4 packs of cigarettes a day. Imagine what he would have done if he smoked no. We probably would have jumped in the pool, boom, gone. Do you know what I'm saying? You know, you can still be healthy. I mean, hey, this human body is amazing. We can smoke all the cigarettes we want, eat all the candy bars, donuts, shove cows in our mouth, not get them out our rear end, never exercise and never have a good thought, and we still live to be about 72 years of age. Isn't that incredible? But what would happen if we started taking better care of ourselves? You know, Stanford University published a report and said they think the average lifespan of the human body is 125 years. But our average lifespan is 72. I called them up and I said, well, this sounds wild. How did you come up with this information? And they said, through a total analysis of the anatomy and physiology of the human being, we believe a human being should live to be 125. And I said, then why are we dying at 72? And they said, well, it's our lifestyle. Now that's Stanford. Personally, I think the medical school is wrong. I think it should be more like 300 or 400, maybe 500. How about 750? I believe absolutely that the ages in the Old Testament are perfectly correct. Now, amen. Some people say, well, they counted differently back then. They didn't count differently back then. These ages are what will happen to us if we decide to change it. Certain problems that I inherited from my long history of large German people, my son does not have now, because I did some work. I did some work. How long is my son going to live? He should outlive me. I should outlive my parents. What's going to happen if all of us start eating better, thinking better, taking better care of ourselves, and after 10 and 15 and 20 and 30 generations of loving, hugging, kissing, great eating, organic food eating, herb taking, vegetarian, New Age cosmonauts like all of you. Are we going to still die at 55 of heart disease? I don't think so. And we're going to see these ages coming back. You know, someone came up to me earlier and said that their parents were still alive at 101 or whatever. You know, all my patients used to come to me from all over the world, and I find it very interesting that all their relatives in the old country were still alive at 102, and they were all dying at 47 of cancer. It doesn't say a lot for what you get when you come to America. And the freedom you came for, you're probably not going to get either. But don't get me going on that again. I used to see many patients from all over the world, and their relatives knew something. Simplicity. Keep your life simple. Eat simple. How to feed the soil. Our elders knew how to do that, and we're losing it. I was down in St. Croix teaching, and there was a wonderful, and we have some people here from the Virgin Islands. Ah, yes, thank you for coming. I've spent some time down there speaking and have some great friends down there. And I was speaking at a high school in St. Croix, and there was a man, and he stood up and he said, Dr. Schulze, why don't you tell people that that the soil is alive? It's not just some dead dirt we grow things in, that it's alive too, and we know how to feed it, but you have to feed that earth, that Mother Earth, if you want it to give you something good back. And we don't know how to do that anymore. And I said, well, you tell us. And he's told me about how they ground up the fruit and used the skins and composted and made the earth alive. This man was 92 years old. And I said, well, why aren't you teaching in this school agriculture? Because they had a modern agriculture program. I said, we need this information. And I got him actually teaching at this school agriculture at 92 years old because he knew how to grow food and to take care of the planet. We've lost a lot of that common sense. I used to tell my patients that getting well was easy. It's getting sick that's difficult. It takes a lot of years of concentrated dedication to make yourself ill. Getting well is usually just a matter of stopping doing the few things that you were doing that was killing you and beginning a new few things to help you out. Does that make sense? It's not some mystical, magical thing. Dr. Jensen, I love that man, used to always say he had the cure for ulcers. Tie the patient's hand behind their back and don't let them eat. I mean, if every time you put something in your mouth you go, it's killing me, you might want to look at what's in your hand. Dr. Jensen, I was sitting with Dr. Jensen, and a man came up and had sciatica for years. So bad it felt like hot lead going down his leg. The medical doctors were finally going to cut the nerve. Dr. Jensen sat back and looked in his eyes and took a breath and said, I got your problem. The problem with you and your sciatica is you got too much darn money. I thought, what the heck is he talking about? He said, stand up. And he turned the man around and took his wallet out, said, keep the wallet out of your pocket for a week, and that man's sciatica was gone. Because he was sitting down and pressing that wallet into his sciatic nerve. That's natural healing, and the doctors were going to cut the nerves to his leg. Can you believe this? And I saw this all the time in my clinic. Here's another one of the things that came to me in the clinic. Disease. All disease, every disease, is some type of blockage. Some type of blockage. In other words, the blood flow is cut off to the area or reduced, so you're not getting the nutrition in and you're not getting the waste out. Or maybe the nerve flow is disrupted due to muscle spasms or pinched nerves or degenerating nerves, and the nerve impulses aren't getting there. Maybe it's the lymphatic fluid is restricted and not flowing to this area of your body, and you need more circulation of the lymph so the white blood cells can clean it up and feed it and remove the toxic waste. Maybe it's your chi, the Chinese call it chi, the Japanese ki, the Indians prana. It's some type of life force. Maybe the oxygen is cut off to an area and you're not getting the area oxygenated. Maybe the area is cut off to positive emotions. Maybe it's an emotional blockage or a spiritual blockage. But all I can tell you is that if you have an area of your body that's sick, it's blocked. And we need to get in there and open up that blockage and bring the blood and bring the lymph and bring the nerves and the chi and the ki and the prana and the spirit and the good emotions and the oxygen back into that area. And it will get well. So getting well is simply a matter of undoing the blockage and letting all the wonderful things come in and getting the waste out. And the area gets better, gets healed. And we're going to talk a lot of specifics on that coming up. Responsibility is a heavy one. People come to me and say, Dr. Schulze, I'll do anything to be well. When I tell them what anything is, all of a sudden they don't want to be well anymore. You ever notice that? That's responsibility. My patients used to walk in my office like they wanted a Mercedes-Benz right here. And once I told them what the payment was going to cost, that rusty Volkswagen wasn't so bad after all, was it? Do you hear what I'm saying? We all think we're willing to do anything, but that anything for some people is too much of a disruption of their life. That's why we have medicine. You can eat anything, you can drink anything, you can think anything, and we'll put the laser beam on, and you'll be okay. You don't have to partake. You can just lie down. In fact, we'll put you to sleep. We'll just put you to sleep, and you can lie back and have these wonderful dreams, and we'll do all the work for you. And then you can go back to your life and do anything you want. Now, some people think, oh, are you being a little harsh on medicine? I had a man come into my office after his third heart attack, and he had been to the 5 top hospitals in Southern California, to the 5 top cardiac specialists. And I said, what did they tell you about your food program? He looked at his wife, she looked at him, and in unison they said nothing. They said to go out and enjoy my life if I would have the bypass surgery. And he said, I didn't want to have the bypass surgery. This is the kind of education that's going on in hospitals. None! No education. You see it on TV. I saw a boy that was yellow with a jaundice, and his father was pleading, please, please, I need a liver for my son. He's dying, and you know, I'm begging for a liver transplant. And he goes, I want my son to grow up and be a normal kid. He can't even play in Little League, and I want him to be able to eat hot dogs and M&Ms. He used the brand names. And I'm like, oh, great, so what? He can wreck the new liver? There's no education. This isn't going to work. We can't just keep ripping body parts out and putting them back in. It doesn't work. We have to suppress the immune system, and those patients get cancer. I saw another thing on television, a woman after a 16-hour grueling liver surgery, and they said, how are you doing? And they said she was happy in bed having her favorite meal of pizza to clog up the new liver. There's no education. I had so many patients come to me after their cardiac bypass surgery, and the doctor said, go out and enjoy your life. You got all new plumbing. What about the artery, carotid artery to their brain, or the arteries to the kidneys, or the arteries to the lung? What about the arteries to the other major organs of the body? They're still filled with schmutz that could block up at any moment. Doctor says, go out and enjoy your life. No education. Responsibility is not a factor in medicine. It's for irresponsible people. And doctors think that you, I mentioned this, are such a group of morons that if you are given the truth, you will not take that because you're too addicted to your crunchy treats and the booze and the cigarettes and the burgers. You're not going to change. You're stupid Americans. You're just dumb people. American Heart Association more or less said that. They said even though Dr. Ornish proved that on a certain food program, like a vegetarian food program, you can melt the cholesterol out of your coronary arteries and you won't need surgery, the American Heart Association said, yeah, but Americans won't do that. These groups don't think too much of you, but I do. That's the difference. Your body knows how to heal itself. And all you have to do is get out of the way. Here's another way of looking at it. Suppose instead of a body, we're flying a big airplane. I was an art major. Here you are. You're an airplane. And you're flying this way. And you're flying at 300 miles an hour. Now, I flew back recently from the East Coast, and we hit a 500-mile-an-hour headwind. And the pilot said we weren't going anywhere. We were flying at 500 miles an hour, but the wind was coming at us at 500 miles an hour. He said that at some point he thought we were going backwards. That's called a headwind. You normally have energy because your body wants to survive and repair. So you're going this way at 300 miles an hour. Now, if you hit a headwind of 300 miles an hour, you're not going to go anywhere. Now, what are the headwinds? Well, a headwind could be beer and whiskey and cigarettes. It could be junk food. Could be fat, animals, eating. I say most people you're safe if you stop eating anything with a face. Animal fat. It could be no exercise. We get exercise. You ever see LA Story? If you want to go next door, you get in your car and you drive out your driveway and drive in the driveway next door. We don't get a lot of exercise in this town. Most Americans don't get a lot of exercise anymore. So lack of exercise, a bad attitude. Let's say beer is 50 miles an hour. Let's say whiskey 75 miles an hour. Let's say cigarettes are 150 miles an hour. Junk food 200 miles an hour. Animal fat, and I'm going to talk a lot about that later when we get into food and what killed most of my patients, besides doctors. And we're going to talk about animal fat, another 200. And no exercise, take out 500 and a bad attitude, that's about 1,000 miles an hour headwind. You got about a 5,000 mile an hour headwind going against you. Are you flying forward? I don't think so, because over here is disease. And over here is health. And this is where you are trying to get to. You're going 300 miles an hour, but you've got too many factors going against you. So which way is your airplane going to go? Yeah, backwards, right into here. And the next thing you know is you're going to be sick. Now, George Burns' airplane was going at about 10,000 miles per hour because of his genetics. So he was able to play with all those things and still be just fine. Who knows? Maybe these things did damage, but maybe it was just his attitude was so good. It kept him going. That man had a pretty good attitude. I saw him during the Groucho Marx trial. And Groucho Marx had a lawsuit with his ex-wife. And the judge, there were a lot of people saying his new wife was too young and he must have been insane, shouldn't have married her. And they said to George Burns, they said, well, let's just be honest. Could you have sex with a woman this young? And he said, not more than 2 or 3 times a day. That was George Burns. Maybe his attitude was alone keeping him, but he was going at about 10,000 miles an hour. He could do just about anything and survive because he had a laugh inside him. He had a laugh. But some of us aren't only going 1,000 miles an hour. Some of us are only going 25 miles an hour. And then you have to just start. Remember I said getting well was just a matter of removing some of the things you do that kill you and beginning some new things to propel you towards health, right? So let's start removing some of these things. Well, the next thing you know is you don't have a headwind at all. And your plane, your body now, is flying forward at 25 miles an hour. And if you want to propel it in this direction, all you have to do is begin doing some good things for yourself. Think about it. How about some live food? How about some food that still has vitamins and minerals and enzymes and amino acids and will help you, will heal you? How about some live food and some organic? And how about some juices? Some wonderful juices. And how about cleansing? How about cleaning out your body periodically? That'll add 150 miles an hour. The juices, 500 miles an hour. What about an attitude? What about a new, wonderful, loving, healing, laughing attitude in your life? That's going to add another 300 miles an hour. The next thing you're going to know, in exercise, that's going to add another 500. Next thing you know, you're going 5,000 miles an hour towards health, even if you inherited a weak constitution. Does that make sense? So all you have to do if you're not well is just start removing from this category and adding to this category, and you will get well. When? I don't have any idea. My patients used to say, well, how long is it going to take, Doctor? Do I look like a stockbroker? Do I look like a weatherman? People that predict the future? I don't know how long it's going to take, but I do know one thing. You just have to put one foot in front of the other one, and one foot. And if you do this, and you're feeling a little better, but you're not well, then you do this. And if you're still not well, you do this. And you keep adding things here and taking away the negatives here, and your body, your plane is going to fly towards health. You're going to get well, period. You keep on that process. My patients just say, well, how long is it going to take? I don't know. They say, well, how long before my tumor goes away? How long did it take you to grow a tumor? I don't know. Well, how intense is it going to have to be? I don't know. What's the worst case scenario? Well, move to Tibet and become a breatharian. That's about as far as you'll have to go. But I have a feeling that somewhere in between your next glass of carrot juice and moving to the Himalayas and becoming a breatharian, you'll get well. I didn't have any patients that had to go that extreme. Does that make sense? And you just keep walking that path and adding on the good and taking away the bad. It is that simple. Why did more people respond in my clinic than most others? Just because I pushed harder. I didn't take no for an answer. I threw people out on their butt. Had this wonderful older lady, gray-haired, sweet as can be, come to my clinic. And the people who worked in my clinic, Anisha and others, voted her the sweetest, nicest patient that I had. And on her third visit, I had my hand around the back of her neck, and I threw her ass right out the front door of my clinic with a little kick behind it. And they were all standing there like, oh my God, Dr. Schulze has flipped out one more time. Why would he do this? Very simple. She wouldn't do the programs. I can't help people get well who don't do the programs. I don't care how sweet you are. Sweet alone doesn't do it. Does that make sense? You came into my clinic, you did the work. You didn't do the work, you got out, you don't get out, I kick you out. I don't waste my time fiddling around with people. I didn't waste my time when I had to see Dr. Jensen. I did what was necessary to get there. People say, well, I don't have the money. Fine, sell your furniture. See if I care. Sell your television, sell your drapes, sell your car, and crawl to the crusade. I don't care. That is a commitment that it takes to get here. We torture some people to make that commitment to get here. If you can't get here, you won't get well. Does that make sense? If you can't make the commitment to get on a plane or whatever it takes to get somewhere like I did in my life, suppose my car ran out of gas in Oklahoma. Think I would have just stopped and I'd be living in Tulsa now? I was going to Dr. Jensen's and nothing was going to stop me. Does that make sense? That's where you have to get to. Yeah. Yes. A good bumper sticker, yes.
Educate, not medicate.
Yeah, educate, not medicate. That's wonderful. It's so important. And this is what's going to save our children, and this is what I'm very interested in. And this is why I do volunteer teaching anytime I can get in a school. A lot of the schools I go into, it's a horror. The children are drugged. In a lot of private schools here in Southern California, the nurse wheels around a drug cart to the room to dispense drugs to the kids. They would have drugged me, except they didn't do that to kids when I was in school. I remember when I was in first or second grade and someone over here was crying, someone over here was banging their head into the wall, someone over here wet their pants, someone over here vomited, someone over here was fighting, and that was called being a kid. We don't want to allow that anymore. Look what happened to us. We don't want to allow that. So we have to drug our children so they don't do that. I had many women and families bring their children to my clinic because they were given drugs. And one of the reports I remember reading was prescribed Ritalin. The child was hyperactive under reasons that said he was touching the other children. Oh, what a horrible child. Touching the other children. I'd be worried about my son if he didn't touch the other children. And you wouldn't believe the excuses that I read of why children are put on these drugs. I know some kids have more energy. Imagine what I was like as a kid, a lovely little angel. Somebody said it wasn't heart disease that killed my parents at 55. But we don't let our kids be like that anymore. We drug them, put them on kiddie Prozac, and they just turn into zombies. And then they can all be put in the same mold. We can get the square pegs and the round pegs and the triangular pegs through the same hole. But take a look back at history. History dictates that all the bright moments in history of this planet were created by people who didn't fit in. I don't want to fit in. I don't want our children to fit in. I don't want to be drugged to fit in. I know I should be on Prozac. I'm too manic, but I'm not going to take it. So I don't fit in, and my son doesn't fit in. You'll meet him tomorrow. He doesn't fit in. And this is good. You know, in Europe, I'm amazed at Europe when someone wants to study art. They go, oh, an artist. In this country, they go, yeah, but what are you going to do for a real job? You know, we don't have any art. We all got to be certified public accountants or something. Do you know what I'm saying? We're all pushed into this mold. We're not going to have any incredible people because we're all drugged and pushed into doing the same thing. It's a horror. It's a nightmare. I might as well make a few more enemies now, but you know, I'm not a believer in the public school system, and I will never send my son to school, ever. I won't let them kill his brain. I won't let that happen. They tried to do it to me. Thank God I was too stubborn and too constipated to let that happen. But I am not a believer in the system the way it is now. Instead of encouraging our children to move in the direction they want to go, we force them into directions they don't. And it's a horror and it's a nightmare, and we have to stop doing it. Let's look at this page here under the appendix. It says that the interaction between the appendix and the spleen. Now they know that the appendix is an important immune organ and that your spleen won't work as well when your appendix is removed. It says regeneration of the lymphoid follicles in a spleen after radiation contamination is dependent upon the presence of the appendix. In other words, they've discovered that your spleen doesn't regenerate itself very well if your appendix is removed. We can't expect to take a part out of the body and have the rest of the parts work. This isn't pieces and parts and isolated objects. It's one unit working together. Does that make sense? Yes, makes a lot of sense to me. Oh, I have a few things to mention. Here's a letter I got the other day. Dear Dr. Schulze, thank you very much for the refund I received after returning your products. I am sure your formulas are the answer to my health problems, but I found them a bit harsh for us. Well, I wonder how she's going to find the knife, the radiation beams. What about when they put that chemotherapy shunt down into her sternum and unload those toxic poisons, and the first thing she's going to feel is like an 18-wheeler drove over her head? Now we're going to talk harsh. And see, this is a problem that we all get into. Now, I'm not picking on her much. But if she thinks a few herbs were harsh, she has a big surprise coming when she goes into the hospital. I'd like to read something here. This is just on page 3. You don't have to read it, but it's a wonderful, wonderful speech here. And this really describes all of us here. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are born to manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. I get chills on that one. That was Nelson Mandela's inaugural speech. Some of you are familiar with that. Wow, I think I need to read that about 50 more times.